You are listening to Reinvented. I'm your host, Jen Eckhart. You know, since this show's inception, it has been the honor of a lifetime to feature courageous stories and tales from the trenches from some of the world's brightest, most thought-provoking public figures who were fearless in risking everything in pursuit of their passions and higher calling. They also share one common denominator in life. They threw out the rule book. These days, it feels like such individuals are a dying breed. While most people follow the crowd and the path of least resistance, our next guest paved her own path, stayed true to herself, and didn't allow Hollywood to get the best of her. She left an indelible mark on an entire generation with her breakthrough role as DJ Tanner on the hit TV series Full House, and saw the iconic role reinvented on the critically acclaimed hit Netflix series Fuller House. She is an award-winning actress, an executive producer, a wife, and a mother. But most importantly, this extraordinary woman defies conventional Hollywood standards by her unwavering faith, commitment to family, and the values that she holds dear. She has boldly led by example and has proven that you do not need to change who you are to convert dreams into a reality. She has remained a staple in the homes and hearts of family across the country after her Emmy-nominated tenure as host on The View, Dancing with the Stars, and in her record-breaking Christmas and mystery movies. She even went on to become a New York Times bestselling author, to producing the #2 movie at the box office upon its release in her latest film, Unsung Hero. Candace Cameron Bure is the American dream. And we are so excited to feature her on today's episode of Reinvented. Candace, welcome to Reinvented.
Thank you. That was such an intro.
Thank you.
I'm just like blushing over here.
I practice it maybe 30 times. I also had to practice your mouth. Your name is a mouthful. I had, Bure, it's cold. I had to do it a couple times. We finally got it.
Candace, you did Cameron, all the right things.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to get to Unsung Hero and all of the amazing things that make you who you are. But I'd be remiss to not spend a little time discussing Full House with you, just because of how iconic the show is, and because I know that a lot of my viewers and listeners are going to want some insider intel from the set, from DJ Tanner herself. Now, I am a child of the 90s. I was born in 1990 and grew up watching Full House. Also grew up watching a lot of reruns of Full House.
Yeah.
But this is a pinch me moment. It is a little bit surreal to have like the DJ Tanner on my show while I grew up with you. You know, sometimes it's lost on people. Like, you were growing up as well while starring in this hit TV series. You portrayed a tough, responsible big sister, even though you were still a kid yourself. Because your mother on the show passed away when you were young, you had to grow up quickly. You know, I am curious, did you ever experience any parallels between the show and your real life?
I think of the places where we don't parallel is that I'm the baby of my family. And it's like, I feel like it's very different to be the baby or be the firstborn. And so, of course, on the show, I was everyone's big sister, which was so much fun for me because I was like the little fighter at home, you know, and the baby and the princess, like all the things. And so, when I was on Full House, it was really fun to play big sister and be more responsible in that way and be the leader that all the younger kids would be looking up to you. And I think I fell into that role pretty well. Like I enjoyed it. I loved playing both sides of the coin at home and at work.
I love that. You know, on the show, you lived in San Francisco, California with your sisters, your father, Danny, and of course, your crazy uncles, Joey and Jesse. Full House was unique, though, in that, you know, in looking back at the show, it really did tackle head-on challenges our generation faced. You know, anxiety, drinking, bullying, weight loss, child abuse, death. all challenges that we face in our own lives and our families today. How did it feel? And I'm curious to hear from your perspective. How did it feel addressing and acting out these complex issues during such a young and impressionable age?
I look back on it now, and I am so appreciative of the showrunner and the creator of the show, Jeff Franklin, and all the writers that we had on the show, because back in the late 80s and 90s, these weren't topics that were being discussed on primetime television. So it was kind of groundbreaking for this very happy family show, because we were safe for the whole family, to then have a couple of episodes each season that did talk about those types of things. And they did such a wonderful job. As a kid, I just kind of felt like, hey, this is life. This is what we deal with. You're presented with a script each week, but yet, and you're going to perform it, but it was very relatable. Right. And that's why I can look back as an adult and just very much appreciate the writers and the work that they did.
It was your former beloved co-star's birthday not long ago, Bob Saget, who sadly passed away on January 9th, 2022. Are you able to share with us your favorite on-set memory with Bob?
Oh, goodness.
I'm sure there's many.
There's too many to count. He's one of my closest friends my whole life, really. And from the day he introduced himself and said, "Hey, I'm going to be playing your dad on television," I just fell in love with him. And not only was he like a father figure, but I have a really great real dad. So Bob was more of like one of my best friends. And he was just a great guy. And we had so many laughs on the show, so many fun adventures. And just like too many to count. And some of them are just like, those experiences that you're like, oh, well, you had to just be there.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. He portrayed a single, hardworking dad on that show. He wasn't just Bob Saget, and he was not just Danny Tanner. He was the dad like everyone needed in their lives. Does that make sense? And
it totally does.
And I know his memory and legacy will live on. If you could say one thing to your former beloved co-star, Bob Saget, today, what would it be?
I'd say, "Hi, it's Candace," because he always introduced himself. He's "Hi, it's me, Bob," which was hilarious. So I'd say, "Hi, it's me, Candace." I honestly, if I could see him one last time, I just would want to tell him how much I love him and give him a big hug. He was the best hugger ever.
Aww.
He gave great hugs. He meant them. And I will never forget them. And it's something that I think about so often in my relationships, is that Bob always let you know that he loved you. And so that's what I've carried with me. But I would just want to sit and laugh with him, I wouldn't want to just have like one thing to say to him. He's too fun.
He seemed like just a larger than life person. And how lucky are you to have spent so much time with him? He captured our hearts across America. We're all about keeping it real here on Reinvented. In fact, you're not allowed on this show unless you are genuine and authentic. I don't make the rules, but I guess that speaks, that's a testament to your character. You are a fellow podcast host, Candace. You recently shared on your show that there was a lot of, and I can't even believe I'm starting the interview this way, but there was a lot of fart humor on set, which is probably like the least shocking thing I've heard, given like the dynamic and the actors that were on set. Yeah. Outside of that, and I know because all my viewers and listeners and fans of this show are asking me, outside of that, are you able to share any funny or an embarrassing moment that occurred while shooting on set with fellow co-stars John Stamos and Dave Collier that people might not know about? I know the stories are endless, but can you share one?
I feel like, I've been asked this question. Here's the thing, so many times, like, just tell me one nugget that we haven't heard yet. And yet it's been 35 years since we've done this show. I think like everything is out there. Although that was a fresh memory that popped into my mind when I was sitting down with Dave Collier and I was doing the Full House Rewind podcast. And I remember that was there was a lot of fart humor. So yeah. Anyway, let me think if
We have
there's something
time.
else.
We
I
have
know.
time. We will
I
wait.
just don't know that I'm going to think of anything fresh or anything.
Even my camera guy's like, come on, get it out of her.
It was just, you know what? The guys created such a fun atmosphere. So they were always cracking jokes. We were always laughing, which meant we were always in trouble with the directors and the producers because, like, it was just like, hey guys, we're actually doing a job and we have to work. But us kids were more professional at times than the guys were. But when you're having such a great time like that and the camaraderie is there and everyone's enjoying to be there, like, what's better than that? So I think there was a lot of grace for all of the humor that was ongoing, even though it delayed us in the work.
I love that. I'm sorry. I have to do this. It is the theme song. When I play that song for you, what feelings arise?
It just feels like home. I've heard that theme song my whole life. It feels like family, feels like home. I immediately think of the Golden Gate Bridge and us driving in that red convertible car. That's the image that pops into my mind first, but it's a happy feeling.
So you're not tired of the song. You don't get sick of it.
I'll never be tired of it.
That's so sweet.
It's like having your own anthem,
Yeah.
It's
I get that.
It's a pretty cool thing.
I get that. You and John Stamos have so much in common. You both seem to defy the aging process. You guys have like this Benjamin Button, like reverse aging thing going on.
Lori Loughlin in there too, because she's aging in reverse also.
All of you, tell us your secret. We all can use some tips here.
My goodness. I think good genes help. My mom and dad look great. Okay. But I don't think it's going to be any surprise. I wish I told you that John Stamos sold a little magic potion to turn back the years, but he hasn't. So it's all.
I don't know. I might need to have him on to confirm that. Because I don't believe it. Something's going on. Something's in the water.
Maybe on the side, only a few of us know.
Something's in the water at your house and at his house, and you both are drinking it. And we all want in on it. So, I
drink a lot of his water.
That is good.
And that is a key.
That is good.
Good skin and aging well.
Amen. I got my Stanley cup here next to me, my trusty Stanley, and it is full of water. You mentioned Lori Loughlin. I believe in the concept of redemption and forgiveness. It is the bedrock of my show, Candace, and what it stands for, people's ability to overcome and to evolve. Lori Loughlin, who is, by the way, invited on this show anytime, by the way, portrayed Aunt Becky on the show Full House. And as you know, was arrested and sentenced to prison amid a widely publicized college admission scandal. In your view, Candace, what do you think Lori can do to use her situation for good?
I think Lori's already doing that. She's a very dear and close friend of mine, and I don't even like rehashing that because she's done what she's needed to do and she's moved on. And I think that the public should too. And she's doing a lot of incredible work. So she doesn't do it for the public. She does it for herself. And I think that's incredibly wonderful and beautiful.
Absolutely. As a result of the critically acclaimed Netflix spinoff Fuller House, you, Candace, have become a role model and mentor to a whole new generation. What would you say to encourage a younger generation today?
As a woman of faith, because, that's where my heart is at. And my encouragement would be to read your Bible and to know God, to know how much God loves you. And as a younger generation, there's truly nothing more important in life. And it's really for every generation. But as young people, you think you know everything. And you think you know better than everyone that's gone before you. And yet there's so much to learn from history. And I'm like, so open your Bible, learn from history. That's what I would tell the younger generation.
Model and entrepreneur Kathy Ireland was featured as a guest on this show when I first launched the podcast back in 2021. We spoke a great deal about her faith and how, she was laughed out of boardrooms for being a woman and has had a lot of doors closed on her for being an outspoken Christian woman of faith. Kathy shared on this show that her faith in Jesus Christ is a non-negotiable. And I sort of look at what she's saying and I equate that to you. She told me that her first and last meeting at the start and end of every day is first and foremost with God. We've discussed the ramifications of Hollywood actors owning their faith as it pertains to their careers. What was your experience? What has your experience been like as an outspoken Christian in Hollywood?
Yeah, it's been different over the years. There's certainly been seasons of it where it's didn't feel like it was embraced well. And yet there have been moments where my faith has given me the ability and the platform to do what I've done. I wouldn't have been a co-host on The View had it not been for being outspoken about my faith. That's what got me that job. And so they were very embracing of it because I was opinionated from that worldview, which is wonderful. So I can't blame Hollywood for not liking the Christian at all times, but certainly along the way, there have been a lot of challenges. And I've been told so many times that it would be very difficult. You can be a person of faith, but leave it at home. Just don't speak publicly about it. It'll allow more people to like you, all those kind of things. And I'm like, but those things just didn't, not only did they not sit well with me, but I just thought, life is too short. I'm not going to be anyone other than who I am. And if I don't succeed in this business because of that, then the business isn't for me. And so I've been unapologetic about it. And, I think there actually are a lot of people of faith in the entertainment industry. Not all of them share that with you, but there's a lot of people and we're all high-fiving each other. Some are just more outspoken than others, but I do find that while there's certainly places that it's very challenging, I feel like this business is big enough and there's enough open doors, there's enough distribution, cable channels, production companies that are making movies of faith and embrace the faith, that we can all work together. We really can.
I love that. You're kind of part of a silent majority over there. Do you believe that by being an outspoken woman of faith, it has hindered your career in any way?
I'm going to say no, because I wouldn't be here and sitting with you talking to you about this if it weren't for my faith and the doors that were closed because of it. So every no that we get just presents another opportunity, another challenge, another way to get there. And so no has never been a final answer for me. And I've always said, great, you're going to say no, but I'll go talk to this person, or I'll go find another way, another route, and challenge the system in that way, which I love. That this is what your podcast is all about. And I've persevered. I've just continued to keep knocking on the doors and find a different way to do it. And so I would say that my faith has not hindered me, because otherwise I wouldn't, have accomplished all the things that I have accomplished and I'm continuing to do.
And like you said, it's why we invited you on the show. I see so much, I identify so much with you, Candace, because I feel like you're like me. I don't really take no very well. I don't really accept it. And like you said, when a door closed, you find a window, you find a way. When there's a will, there's a way. Many people think that you grew up in a Christian home, but you actually did not. You say that you grew up in a moral home, a home that stressed the importance of living by the golden rule, but not a home that talked a lot about Jesus. I thought that was really interesting. You also shared that it wasn't until your parents hit a hard place in their marriage that you found yourself in a church. You were 12 when you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you were baptized. Your brother, Kirk Cameron, was a heartthrob with his acting career, well known for the ABC sitcom Growing Pains. I am curious, what was the dynamic between you and Kirk growing up, given both your levels of fame at such an early age?
It felt pretty normal to me and to us. And we also have two sisters. My brother's the oldest, and we have two sisters, Melissa and Bridget, that are in between, who are not in the industry. And but the dynamic between me and my brother was actually really good. I think because he was the oldest and I was the baby, it wasn't like we were, and he's a guy, I'm a girl, like we weren't competitive in any way.
That's good.
And yeah, it really was. And it just kind of felt like, oh, this is just what our family looks like. And when we came home at the end of a work day, especially with my sisters and my mom and dad, it just was like normal family. It was like, we're having dinner. Who's doing your homework? Who's taking out the garbage? Make sure to make your bed. Like all the things that happen. And, in the 80s growing up, I feel like, I don't know, times have changed now, but it just felt like pretty simple, even though you had two kids that were on successful television shows. And I really do attribute that to my mom and dad for making our home really normal.
Wow. Now I'd love to hear the perspective of your sisters in this. Like if it was weird for them having two very famous siblings, how would they feel in this equation? Were they okay with it? Was it weird for them? Is it still weird
I
for
think
them?
it's kind of all of the above. I don't know that it was weird, but when my brother was like at the height of his 80s, 90s heartthrob place in life. I mean, it's a little funny when you got a ton of girls just screaming over your brother and you're like,
Right.
it's my brother. But they were, my sisters loved it in that they would always go to the tapings of Growing Pains and Full House. And whenever we had events or I had things that I got invited to, my sisters always came along. So they were very much a part of it, even though they weren't on camera. And, I would say that it was, relatively fine experience for
Right.
them too. Yeah.
Speaking of family dynamics, you guys seem still, even today, all these years later, the Full House crew, like such a close-knit family. What is your relationship like with the Olsen twins today?
I mean, we talk the least. I don't talk to them very often, but I did see them in person a couple years ago at Bob's funeral and during that week, and they were so lovely. It was it just made me miss them and miss the relationship. But I think people forget that they were on the show from 9 months old until they were 8, and
Yes.
so their memory, that's very young, and their
Very
memories are,
formative years
yeah,
too.
and their
Yeah.
memories are very different than even mine when I was on the show from 10 to 18. Like I
Right.
remember a lot of that.
Right.
So anyway, and it was lovely to spend time with them and see them and just to get to hang out. But I haven't really talked to them since.
You share very candidly, which I love on your website, quote, I was still a responsible, good kid growing up, and I liked pleasing my parents. I wasn't the typical child star, no addictions or alcohol abuse or trouble with the law. When I looked around to see what other people my age were doing, my life seemed tame in comparison. I very much identified with that statement. That's not to say I didn't have slip ups or, sneak out of the house and rebel as teenagers often do. But I see a lot of myself in you and in your character, DJ Tanner. Candace, and I have to ask you this, do you see yourself today as a perfectionist and as maybe like a bit of a people pleaser?
Oh, a people pleaser, 100% yes. It's something I work on all the time. I've gotten much, much better at it, but I know that just inherently, I'm a people pleaser, big
Same,
time.
same.
Um, and perfectionist, I would say I am not a perfectionist. I think people around me might say that I am, but I think there's a difference in perfectionism versus maybe achievement. It's like very important for me to achieve and make my goals that I've
I love
set,
that. Yep. Well
but
said.
I'm not necessarily a perfectionist about it.
Okay. All right. But we, as in you and me, are working on the people pleasing
Yes.
aspect of that. That's a very real thing, and it's something I am also unpacking in therapy currently, and it's not an easy thing to shake, especially when you're wired a certain way and brought up a certain way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you are a mom to three incredible children. You have
Yeah.
discussed have I want to know, have you discussed with your kids who are now grown adults
Yeah.
cancel culture and how your views tend to be the exception amongst your broader peers?
Oh, well, I mean, listen, that comes down to worldview, and that's how what you're brought up in. I mean, there's nothing more that I love than having conversations with my kids, but that has been a dialogue their entire life, from being toddlers to preteens to teens, and now they're adults, and we still have lots of those conversations about it. But they have the choice in what their worldview is. But I will say we all share the same worldview, and so we know the cancel culture is a very real thing, and we've seen it. We've seen it happen, and I think it's not so much about if it does happen, it's what do you do with it? And that's the conversation that I would have more now with my kids. Like, how do you push through that if that happens to you, or something is on the internet that will never go away for the rest of your life? What do you do with it?
Right. Well, that's part of why I started the show. It really is a way to combat against cancel culture, right? We believe, as I said at the start of this interview, we really do pride ourselves here on Reinvented, people's abilities to overcome. You fall down on your face, you get back up, you make a mistake, you choose a different career path in life, take a different detour. It really is a call out to cancel culture. And so I was just curious where you fall in line with that and what lessons that you work to instill in your children. I've read that you have said on the record, I so enjoy the adult conversations I have with my kids, and that you like seeing who they have grown into as young men and women and how they're going to influence the world and what they're going to do with their lives. How have you developed, because there are a lot of moms that tune into this show, a lot of parents, a lot of single parents. How have you developed this sort of open relationship with your kids with all the distractions that our youth face today?
So here's an interesting tidbit. You're going to want to tune into my new season of my podcast, because this is like everything we're talking about. It's all about raising children today. So we're going to have a whole entire season on this topic. And there's so much good information, more than obviously I can go in depth with here. But I think the important part of setting that tone in your family is really it's setting the environment, and it's from when they're young. And if you don't invest in certain ways and you don't open up that dialogue or those conversations while they're young and create safety and trust with your children, you can't expect that all of a sudden when there's teenagers and there's drama, that when you go to insert yourself and say like, oh, well, tell me about this and open it up. Right. If you've never done that before, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's about setting that foundation and really being intentional and involved. And like I said, creating safety within your kids. So even though I would say, and my kids would say that and my husband, that mom and dad were pretty strict parents, like we had some pretty hard rules in our house. However, there was always an openness to, well, first explain why we had those rules and that they're there for a reason, and to give them the source of those reasons. And typically it was biblical reasons, like here's what God says about it. So let's look into his word and see. But then also saying, but listen, it's your life and you have free will. So you can also make the choices that you want to make. And as mom and dad, we will always be here for you. It doesn't mean that you will not reap consequences for your choices, depending what they are. But we will continue to, lend a hand and pick you up, and we'll be here. We're never going to leave you. There's nothing you could say that would say like, this is so shocking, get out of my life. And that's the safety that you create. So it's like, here are the boundaries, here are the guardrails, but ultimately it's your choice, and we'll figure it out together and, along the way.
What a healthy sentiment I love that so much. Creating a safe space for your children to come and to talk to you, but sort of also cautioning them, against what will happen and that there are consequences for their actions, but also, just sort of reading between the lines here, I think you've done a good job of raising free thinkers, like children who can actually think for themselves and stand on their own 2 feet, which I also think is sort of somewhat of a dying breed today. So good on you, Candace. What some people don't know is that while we were all busy watching Full House reruns, you were busy growing a family with your husband and former professional hockey player, Val Bure. How did you two meet? And I'm curious, what was it about Valerie that drew you to him?
So we were introduced at a charity hockey game in Los Angeles by Dave Coulier, who was on Full
Okay.
House.
All right.
So that's a
So
fun
that was a
tidbit.
setup by him.
It was an introduction. I don't know if it was a setup, but they were playing in this charity game. Dave was also playing in it. And then he said, like, I want to introduce you to this really good hockey player. And I was 18. I was like, great, no problem. So Val and I exchanged numbers, and he called me the very next day and asked me to go to lunch with him, which I did. And, the cool part of the beginnings of our relationship is that after that first date, he left because he was playing. He was signed by the Montreal Canadiens, and I was still on the last year of Full House. And so we talked on the phone, like we were living in, two different countries, Canada and the US, but we talked on the phone for almost 6 months before we ever saw each other again. And I really got to know him that way.
Wow.
And just really liked who he was as a person. We had so much in common, even though you think of, he's a boy growing up in the Soviet Union, in communist Russia, came here at 17 years old to the US or North America. But he was working. He was trained up in being a hockey player his whole life, in the same way that I felt I've been working since I was 5 years old and was trained up in the entertainment industry. So we both had this work ethic and had been working our whole lives. And for me, that was the first connection of likability. And I really gravitated toward that because he understood where I was coming from in terms of work, because work really was my whole life. And I had yet to meet another guy at 18 years old that
With your
understood
work ethic, right?
what a work ethic was, and what long hours were, and what a paycheck was, and like all that kind of stuff. So Val was really, really interesting. And then of course he just had that Russian accent. It was really sexy. And
Wow.
things just
Okay.
went from there.
Candace likes the Russians. Did he have a difficult time sort of like assimilating in North America? Or I think I read somewhere that he learned to speak English by actually watching Full House. Is that true?
It is true. Yeah. He came over, and they take English, so he kind of knew the language, but really learned well from watching television. And Full House was one of the shows that he watched. So it was pretty cute. But I think because I was 18, he was 20 years old when we met. And we've now been together longer than we've been alone in our lives, like single in our lives, because we've been married it'll be 28 years next month. So, and because of that, I think he really just fell into the American culture and lifestyle very quickly, because he married an American.
He married America's sweetheart. Let's call it what it is. I mean, okay. DJ Tanner, hello. That's so funny. So just to clarify, it was not any missing teeth or anything like that, because I know that's a thing with hockey players. And hey, no judgment. Some girls are into that. Some girls are into like the missing teeth on hockey players. I am not personally, but I know that there is some women do like that. What were you guys aligned in, like, you said you had so much in common, and then you have to understand, from my vantage point, I'm looking at DJ Tanner on Full House, your soon to be husband, from the Soviet Union. Like, were you guys aligned? I'm assuming so, on like morals and religion, or like, when did he become a Christian, and how were you guys aligned in that space?
Yeah. So We very much were in the sense that we were both family people. I mean, it was my husband's dream to come to America and have a wife and have children. He wanted a dog and a minivan. I mean, the talk about the
Oh,
American dream. Like
yeah.
he really, really wanted a family, and growing up in a family, like my family means everything to me. So in
Yeah.
that regard, we were very much aligned. And then as far as faith, our faith really developed and grew individually, but not shortly after that together, in that we were both Christians, or we would call ourselves Christians, but we weren't actively pursuing our relationships with God. But pretty early into marriage, once we had children, that really changed and developed quickly.
Yeah. How long did you guys date before he pulled the trigger and he popped the question to you?
Just under 1 year,
Oh,
probably
wow.
maybe 10 months.
You know, you are entering into a new era in your career with your new movie, Unsung Hero, Candace, by bringing this heartwarming tale to the big screen through your production company, Candy Rock Entertainment, such a cute name, by the way. You star as Kay Albright, a real life woman who exemplifies compassion and support for a family during their time of need. You know, this film, you have said, serves as a love letter to mothers everywhere, celebrating their resilience and unwavering support for their families. For my viewers and listeners out there who haven't yet seen the film, talk to us about the origin of Unsung Hero. Like, how did it all come about and how did you become a part of it?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful story. And so it came about because I have been friends with the Smallbone family, and you might know them from either the band For King and Country, or maybe the artist Rebecca St. James. But they are a family of 7 kids and a mom and dad who immigrated from Australia to the US. And they basically lost everything when they came over here in the 80s. And so they had to rebuild their family. They had to just rebuild careers. But what's so inspiring is that I would say Helen, their mom, was the true unsung hero of their family in keeping them together through the hard times. But you see that they really poured themselves into their family. There's this great line that says, your family isn't in the way, your family is the way. And that was through their music careers, and they are multi-Grammy award winning artists, and they've become great friends over the years. So Joel and Luke Smallbone had set a meeting with me and said, we've been sharing our family story for years on the stage, and we think that it's time to make it into a movie. And so they sent me the script, and it was such a beautiful script. We immediately said yes as a production company. We were the first one to sign on to make this. And it was really incredible to bring this story to life. And the movie has done so well in theaters. It's already been out for a month. So it's no longer in all theaters, because that's about the run of a theater, but it'll eventually come to distribution through streaming, if you haven't seen it yet. But there's a lot of beautiful moments in this movie, a lot of tears. A lot of people are like, you didn't tell me to bring the tissues. And it's just all these incredible family moments in this movie. So it's an inspiring story.
You mentioned the recurring theme in Unsung Hero, which is family isn't in the way, they are the way. Yeah. What does that mean to you?
I mean, I believe those words to be true. I don't know that that I would be the woman that I am today, or successful within my career, even if it weren't for my family. And my family always needs to come first before business. That's true for me. My relationship with God, my relationship with family. And I do think about it. I'm like, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you have no one to share it with, if you don't have loved ones around you that you get to celebrate and jump up and down in the joyous moments, or cry in the heartbreaking ones, if you don't have those people around you, like, what's it all mean?
It seems like people in society are longing for movies like Unsung Hero. Why do you think that is?
Because the culture is so divisive. We have We have massive wars going on right now in the world. And then we can turn on the local news, and it's so depressing and so difficult to watch. And we can walk outside and, we can have neighbors that, I don't know, maybe they're not treating you well or you're not treating them well. I don't know. The world just feels, and it is very divisive right now, culturally, politically, socially, in so many directions. So I think when you are in your space and your bubble, and maybe that's at home watching television, maybe it means going to a movie, you just want to watch something that feels good, that entertains, but that also isn't about all this stuff that's in the world that you're trying to get away from. Like, I don't want to go to a movie and have to, unless it's specifically a political movie, like, I don't want the politics brought into the story. It's like, can't I just watch something that's really beautiful and encourages me, and a lot that are just safe? I can take my 8-year-old and watch it, and I don't have to worry about the content in it, and it's not a cartoon. Yeah. And listen, I love some animation. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. But the world longs for this because we're not acting in this way a lot of the time. It's not what we're seeing.
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on this show of leaving politics at the door. You're not allowed to talk politics on this show. And even if a guest brings politics up, they can go there. They can say what they want. I will not engage. I will not entertain it. Yeah. I am a former recovering, and I use that word, recovering TV journalist. I did work for a national news network for nearly a decade. And I can say, having worked at the highest levels of media behind the wizard's curtain, it is all bad. And a lot of it is ratings driven, but like what we see on TV, it's really dark. And I think I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day. I was like, there needs to be like a 24-hour network out there where it just highlights happy news, like positive
like
news. Puppies. Let's just have a feed. Right.
And veterans coming home and seeing their families. That's all I want to watch.
Yeah. There is a lot of good, though, that is in the world. And you are one of those shining and bright lights that brings that, I think, to the forefront with your production company and with the content you put out. Your involvement in Unsung Hero goes beyond acting, as you also serve as an executive producer for the film. In fact, this movie marks your first major film debut in a starring role, further showcasing your versatility and talent as an actress, Candace. I am curious, and this was a personal question, and I know a lot of my viewers and listeners will want to know, was there ever a role out there that you really longed for but didn't get?
The funny thing is, when I was in my teenage years, I auditioned for movies. And you just get the sides. You get a couple of scenes, and then you might get the title. But, a lot of times movie titles change. But you don't actually know what the project is. So, at 16, 17, 18, it wasn't like I was getting offered movies. I just go and audition for them.
Right.
And so it's not like I could desire that movie so badly, because they really wouldn't even give you the whole script. However, I remember auditioning for the movie Pleasantville, which starred Reese Witherspoon. And I think I was 17 or 18, but I knew this was a big feature film. I don't even remember the film. I didn't read the script, but I just kept thinking, like, when I saw it come out, I was like, I auditioned for that movie. I'm like,
and I didn't get it. And I didn't get
to someone. I'm like, you're going to lose out to Reese Witherspoon. Yes, I'm okay with that, because she's incredible.
Beyond acting, you are successful behind the camera as well as a fellow producer and podcast host. We have a lot of similarities, Candace, just saying. I have to know, what do you look for in a project before you consider producing it? Is that what's got to stand out to you when you decide to go all in on something?
Yeah. Well, the material itself has to stand out in some way, shape, or form. And obviously that depends on what we're looking at, if it's a feature film or it's a television movie. There's very, very particular things that I look at within the content and the material and the story itself. So that's first and foremost. And then I very much think of my audience. Who is this movie for? Because that plays a big decision in why you would make it, to know and understand who your audience is. And then, some of the other parts are about the team that you get to put together producing. And that's a big part of it for me. But it's hard to kind of bullet point all of them because each project is specific, and it depends do I have my Great American Family executive hat on, because that's a specific type of content that I'm looking for, which that's what I do as the CCO of Great American Family. So I'm looking at overall content, not just content that I'm creating or that I'm starring in. And that's a particular type of content. But then something like Unsung Hero, which is a feature film, it's like, it's very different and exciting and, gets my brain rolling in different creative ways.
I love it. I love all of the balls you juggle in the air and all of the hats you wear. It really is inspiring, Candace. For women out there who are tuning in to this episode, you inspire them. No doubt. You inspire them. And you strike me as a woman who knows her worth. You know your value and you know what you bring to the table. There's a quote that I love. I'm not afraid to eat alone because I know what I bring to the table. And I love that so much. What advice do you have out there for young women who do look up to DJ Tanner, who grew up with you as I did? What advice do you have for them in the workplace when it comes to knowing their worth?
I think that's it's such a huge piece of the puzzle to know your worth. And, my friend Jamie Kern Lima wrote a book called Worthy. I don't know if you've had her on your podcast, but
not yet, at
she's
least.
Incredible. Just incredible. And it's been on the New York Times bestseller list, I think, for its 14th week in a row, still currently on it.
Wow.
And, but knowing your worth is important because it helps you not just, believe in yourself, but helps you make decisions that you get to choose for yourself rather than someone dictating what they'd like or what they want to do to you, for you. And it's really half the battle. So, one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself is to learn to use the word no.
And
I
love that. Great advice.
To stick up for yourself and also be willing to walk away. And that's probably one of the hardest things for any person, whether you're a man or a woman, but I would say even more for women, because we go, but I don't know if that opportunity is going to be there again. And I don't know if I should, and maybe I should compromise, or maybe I should take half of what I'm worth just because it's the only option I have right now. And I'm telling you, if you believe in yourself enough and you have good people alongside you who are honest and saying like, no, you have the potential, like be willing to walk away and hold your ground. Because I think more times than not, you'll have a new opportunity or you'll create your own opportunity to be able to do the things that you really want to do worth your value.
I love that advice. You are speaking my language. Look, I made a difficult choice to walk away from the world of corporate media. I am not running back into the arms of it anytime soon. I'm sort of the captain of my own ship right now with this show. And I have to say, Candace, I've had doors open for me through this whole process, through this experience that I otherwise never would have. And there's something to be said for that. And there's a lot to be said for being a risk taker. Make it happen and shock everyone. As we wrap this up, in my life, Candace, your book, and I know this, I think it was released in 2021. It was called Radical Kindness. It made
the devotional.
Yes, that devotional book made an impact on me as, it's not always easy to respond to criticism gracefully and not carry resentments from, listeners, viewers, newspapers, or even with the people you once loved and trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Your book reiterates that how important kindness is and how it can transcend hate or even the most impossible of situations. I have worked on this for years and I am still mastering it. You know, I have some good days, some bad.
We all are.
But you know, fans of this show are always in awe of the discipline of the guests that I bring on. You know, this simple yet difficult trait is something I think all of us could use and are in need of in life. As we wrap this up, I am just curious, in taking a step back and in choosing to go all in on kindness, how has it transformed your life?
I think kindness always wins. I've never seen someone change their mind or double back on something and say, oh, I want to know more about that because someone was angry and yelling and screaming at them or rude to them. And so I just seen it time and again. And when people are kind, it always diffuses a situation, always. Yeah. And it's so easy for our blood to boil and to get hot-headed. And it's our natural reaction. But when you can breathe into it and choose kindness above all, whether it actually makes a difference in that moment, it makes a difference in the bigger picture. It makes a difference in your character, in your heart. It'll make a difference in that person, whether they realize it or not. Because it just makes you think, makes you take a deep breath, and then you can think about what's really important in life. Kindness always wins.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when you're just a good person, life does reward you, I think, in unexpected ways. One of my favorite quotes is, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting some kind of silent battle you know nothing about, you know, and it doesn't cost a damn thing to be kind. It doesn't cost anything. True. You know, my parents have always instilled in me and my brother to treat, you know, the janitor the same way as a CEO. You are a bright light in this world and an absolute joy of a human to be connected to. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Reinvented podcast and for continuing to inspire millions of our viewers and listeners worldwide. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
To all my viewers and listeners, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Reinvented with Jen Eckhart. That's available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeartRadio, you name it, it's there. I'm Jen Eckhart. That was Candace Cameron Bure. Thank you so much for tuning in.